Everything is changing, growing, and evolving, even you. From the nurse's student to the baby nurse, off the bedside nurse and into entrepreneurship, you have evolved. So now we're here at the Evolved Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Lakeisha, and let's get right into the episode. So if you know me, you know how I am when it comes to holistic medicine. It's something that has piqued my interest for a very long time. That's why I chose this next guest for the podcast. This is a nurse who uses plant medicine to help heal ailments and diseases in her patients, the founder of Cannabis Nursing Solutions, author of Ageless Medicine, a person who is actively working on the destigmatization of holistic medicine and mental health. Let's welcome Nurse Ashley Wynn Grimes to the Evolved Nurse Podcast.
I love it. I love it. So his name is actually Asa.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And don't feel ashamed or anything because nobody ever gets it right.
Okay. Okay, I'm good then.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that. I really do. Just before we started recording, you were like, "Should I tell you?" And I'm like, "Nope, I want to hear what you found," because I there is a lot to find,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like whatever you did find was probably going to be of interest to you and to your audience. So I'm cool with everything you just said.
Okay, thank you. All right, Miss Ashley, it's a question that I ask on every episode, and that is, did you always want to be a nurse?
Yeah, I think I did kind of. So it was between. So I just knew I wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if nursing was necessarily in my mind's eye at the time. I actually wanted to help children, work with children. I wanted to be a teacher, and then I wanted to be a pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got closer to my college years, it became apparent that being a doctor was very costly, and then being a teacher wasn't going to pay me what I felt like I deserved to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that made the most sense was to become a nurse. So when I started nursing school, I didn't really know anything really about nursing. So everything was a shock. Like the first naked body I saw on a hospital bed, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. Is this what I signed up for?"
Uh-huh.
And so that's pretty much been how my career has unfolded. It's like, "Oh, wait a minute. This is what we got going on." And so to answer your question, most simply, yeah, I think so because I wanted to help, but I just didn't know the path was actually nursing.
Okay, how long have you been a nurse?
16 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations and thank you for everything that you do.
Of course, of course. It's been a journey for sure, but thank you. I appreciate it. And same to you, especially somebody who worked on the front lines during COVID. I wasn't taking care of patients at that point, and I know too many nurses who had a great deal of suffering because of
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic.
Yes, I know people who like completely left nursing.
Mhm, mhm,
So it was definitely a time to deal with, like, because we had on in my day and age, we hadn't dealt with the pandemic.
mhm.
So it was something very different.
Oh,
But
most of us haven't dealt with
yeah,
the pandemic, not like that, that was crazy.
I did not know what was going on. And then I'm coming out of school and we're like, hold on, how are we going to take this NCLEX? Like, what is
Mhm,
going to happen with that? And it was so much contention behind that. It was like so crazy.
mhm.
But what I do want to ask you, because you did go to school a while ago, how was nursing school for you? Do you feel like it's changed based on the stories that you've heard about it?
Yeah, it has a lot. And nursing as a whole has shifted tremendously. So when I was in but I think this one thing hasn't changed. So nursing school was very, very difficult for me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of people, a lot of nurses in nursing school resonate with this. And it's that whole like best answer,
Mhm.
like this nurses eat their young kind of thing that kind of happens throughout nursing school, almost like a hazing. It felt like,
Yes.
um, and so I think that remains consistent. I think the culture of nursing has shifted quite a bit where there was a little bit more of a camaraderie. There was like a pride to being a nurse that I don't know translates as well in modern nursing
Mhm.
or more current nursing. Like I'm 100 years old. I'm not 100 years old. Uh,
But
um,
it's true.
yeah, and so for that, I feel kinda sad because, if anything, I knew that art even though it was this hazing experience and I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, I knew that my instructors did it out of love. I
Mhm.
knew that they were there to support us, and I knew that when I got out, my preceptor was there to help me and support me, I think burnout I think it's been around for a long time, but I think the pervasiveness of burnout is having a ripple effect in the culture of nursing in a way that, makes it very difficult for just day to day survival. And so, for all of those reasons, I think that it is very challenging work to get into. And then, in addition to that, many of us get into nursing wanting to help people, but the way that our
Mhm.
healthcare system has been hit and impacted by COVID has shifted even more the dynamic of this focus towards revenue generation, cost reduction,
Yes.
making sure that the quality metrics are whatever they need to be. And I think the art of nursing is getting lost in translation, and we're focused like most of the time on the science and efficiency of nursing.
I love your answer to that because similar to you, I grew up the same way, wanting to help people, had a very like close affinity to children. So I too wanted to be a pediatrician.
Mm.
But of course, the same situation, the cost, the time that it took to be in school. And when I got out here and I saw how patients were being treated, and then on top of that, how much money the hospitals were making, but they didn't care about how COVID was impacting the nurses and impacting the patients. I think that put a nasty taste in a lot of nurses who really care about their patients' mouth.
It did.
And then just being in the OR and seeing how much we mark up prices on things for simple healthcare that people do deserve. It has been it's a journey just watching how things have been transpiring in the medical field as a
And that part is kind of scary to me because we haven't gotten to the worst that it can be just yet.
Mm.
I don't believe at least. So,
I hope we
and
have.
huh?
I said I hope we have.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Just because, all of our systems are disintegrating in a
Mhm.
way. And I don't think healthcare is special in that way. So, we have to think about the past 100 years. We have been in the industrial period. We're coming to the tail end of the industrial period. Or, I mean, never mind. We're already in the technological AI era.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our systems were built during industrial periods, and this, what do they call it? Assembly line process is a product of that. And we have it all over every system, not to mention the embedded patriarchy, the embedded
Mhm.
racism, the embedded capitalistic, you know,
Mhm.
constructs that are mixed into our assembly line processes. And in my opinion, it's just a matter of time before they disintegrate as a whole, and that we need to go through our reconstruction era that where the foundation is more human centered,
Mhm.
and less about the product. And I say the product in healthcare is our humans, and our healthcare staff are the cogs in the wheel that fixes the product. So if
Mhm.
you were to look at healthcare as if it was a car industry, the car itself is the product, and the machinery is the cog. But in healthcare, you have to have humans to care for humans, so the human actually serves as a cog in this system. And so, if you look at it like with that expansive perspective,
Mhm.
you can only see that we haven't concluded this era of the way that we deliver healthcare. We're always going to try and put band-aids on what has worked, because we think it's the only way to do it. I personally believe that there are new innovative ways
Mhm.
to deliver healthcare. And one of my main ways that we can do that is through true holistic healing, and true preventative healing. And we don't teach enough of that. We don't teach that in nursing school. We don't teach that on the floors. You just kind of have to pick it up.
Yes.
What does a community nurse do? How do plants help and serve? How can we get the most out of movement and exercise, and all these things? Those are things that you won't learn. You just learn what range of motion is.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
So let's go back just a little bit, because I know in nursing school they talk about this holistic perspective that we're supposed to use.
Hmm.
That because we're nurses, we're supposed to look at every aspect of the patient, their environment, their history, where they are in life, their mental health. We're supposed to take all of that into account when we're treating our patients.
Hmm.
But that's not really what happens in our world, because a lot of times we're so task based, that we're just following step by step, like you said, like what was it, a assembly line approach.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So we're just going step by step, and it's a daily thing that sometimes we don't take into consideration all the areas that we need to hit in order to be able to treat the patient, because every patient is different. So where did you start out in your nursing career?
Med surge.
Okay, so how long were you there?
I did that, it was like 2 years of med surge,
Mhm.
transitioned into telemetry, and then did, 3-ish to 4 years of float pool med surge telemetry-ish stuff, but that also
Mhm.
included, like, women's services, rehab, like, all types of stuff. So, yeah, I'll leave that there.
Okay. So we're going to go into like why I'm really here talking to you right now. And that's because I love holistic everything. Like plant medicine is something that I'm extremely interested in. And when was the pinnacle and the point where you felt like this is something that you wanted to do?
Gosh, my ass was drowning. Can I cuss? I
Yeah.
was drowning, man. My career was going very well in like the outward perception of what
Hmm.
well is. So I eventually made it to a large 14 hospital system, working in the corporate environment for all
Oh,
14
wow.
hospitals, doing performance improvement. And so basically, what that means is that I was supposed to create processes and systems to be followed by all 14 hospitals. And we had a lot of community hospitals, we had a huge flagship hospital, very, very different patient populations. Um, and, even though that was technically the description of my role, I was actually being asked daily to save the hospital system money. And
Mm.
so it was, one particular project that stands out that I talk about the most, um, where they wanted me to um, achieve a cost savings of $1.4 million in stents. So, how can we reduce the amount of stents? How can we reduce the cost of the stents? How can we use less stents? That kind of thing.
And
And
to our listeners, can you explain what a stent is?
yeah, basically it's like this mesh material that goes into the vessels of the heart, and it opens it up. Like if you have a clogged vessel in your
Hmm.
heart, you would place that uh, product into the vessel itself, and it basically opens up like a little cage, and it allows the blood to flow. So it's very, very invasive. It's usually in large arteries connected to the
Hmm.
heart. So if you mess this up, you're messing up real big. Usually the people who need this are very, very sick. and it's there long term. So it's not like one of those things that you put in, you take out. No, it's there and it's just there. So this particular product is a very important product because people live the rest of their lives with this product.
So, how do you keep people from getting stents? Like, how do you save $1.4 million? Are you going to go out into the community and tell these people to stop having heart issues?
Yeah, so no, that wasn't it.
Look.
Right? Like, I mean, to me, it does, like, wouldn't it be better if we could prevent people from needing stents?
Mhm.
Like, wouldn't that be like the most human-centered approach?
Yes, it would be, like,
Right? But no,
start doing more community health stuff.
yeah, nope, that wasn't it. So what the solution they came up with was to shop around for different stent brands.
Mhm.
And in the United States, we had, at that time at least, we had, our heavy hitters, the brands that people knew of, that were comfortable with, but the price ranges were all consistent across the board. So we weren't going to save money if we picked any of these stints, right?
Mhm.
But overseas, they had this stint that was a lot cheaper. The problem with that particular stint was that it didn't have a lot of evidence-based research to support it. And so the doctors were like, "Oh no, like, we not really feeling this stint that from over here. We don't have a lot of evidence." That makes
Mhm.
sense to me. So I went back to my people, my performance improvement team. I was like, "Well, I don't know if this is going to work because these stents all cost the same. Um, and they're saying that there's not a lot of evidence to support this other stent." Well, my people told me we need to figure out this other stent across seas.
Yes, and let's talk about how the higher ups have no idea what happens on our level.
No.
So they don't understand. Like, I've seen surgeons who will come, like, they'll be doing a surgery with a new tool and they'll
Mhm.
just throw it away. They're like, "I'm not using this."
Yeah.
They'll trial stuff and they're like, "I'm not happy with this," and they won't use it anymore.
Mhm.
Or they won't navigate away from the old way that they've been doing it.
Mhm.
They never want to change anything because they're used to doing that.
Mhm.
So the higher ups, they send you in.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly how
They
it
don't have to face the surgeons.
went.
Because trust me, I know some surgeons and I know their attitudes.
Mhm.
They don't want to face the surgeon, so they send you in there to tell them, "Oh, we're going to use a cheaper product
Mhm.
for your heart patients, your cardiac patients. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, but it's cheaper for us."
Mhm. That's how that
Girl.
went. That's how that went. They was like, "Look, and it's exactly $1.4 million in savings if you do this for all 14 hospitals." I was like, "What?" So, here's the kicker. All the hospitals basically didn't get a choice, but one hospital, they pushed back and they were like, "We don't have the technology to even view the stent on X-ray."
Mm.
So that particular hospital did not get that stent because obviously it's a patient safety issue at that point. And so, which we did have to push a lot for them to see that that's a patient safety issue. So, needless to say, I didn't hit my 1.4 million. I
I
hit
see.
989,000, which we can round up to about a million,
Mhm.
and I was reprimanded for not hitting the target.
They lucky you got that much. They are lucky you got that much because how I would have been looking at it, I would have been like, "Look, this is not gonna work."
Mhm.
And like I said, I've been in cardiovascular and everything, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And I'm just looking at it from the patient standpoint. Like, I've seen how much these stents cost, but I also see how much they mark these stents up. They mark stuff up almost 200% in the OR. It's so sad, especially for your for-profit hospitals, the ones that are on the market that you can buy and trade and all of that stuff. Those hospitals, it's absurd how much a $1 product can turn into 100.
That's 100%
So,
true.
what
Mhm.
happened with you being reprimanded?
It was just a lot. And so, like, because our projects aren't short lived, like they're 6, 9 month, 1 year projects, right?
Mhm.
So to like go through all of this process and I mean, we doggone saved the company $1 million throughout this process, only to hear about this point four that you all didn't hit. It was really disheartening. And this is just one example. And so, and then in addition to all of that, I was also the victim of cyber theft. And so
Oh,
I was burnt
wow.
out.
What year was this?
Team?
Is this when the Kronos attack happened?
No, 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 no. I don't think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But yeah, but it was pretty significant. $15,000 was stolen. It was a down payment for my house.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, on top of y'all complaining about point 0.4 million. Are
Mhm.
you kidding me? Like I literally had my house taken from under me, in a matter of seconds. And so I just wasn't okay. I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in my career trying to get to this pinnacle moment of this six-figure job for this large corporate position. We got free stuff. We got to go to football games and baseball games and all types of stuff that people do in the corporate environment. But to
Mhm.
me, it was all an illusion and it didn't serve me at all. So I ended up in therapy. Um, and that was super important. And she kept wanting to tell me to go get some medicine, and I'm like, I don't think I'm sick. I think that
Mhm.
life just really sucks right now, and I need help with dealing with it. Like I don't think medicine is the answer for me, but that seemed to be the only solution that was given to me. And so that even frustrated me. So I started doing research. I started doing yoga. I started just kind of learning about myself. And I just went through this process of like, how can I make myself better without a doctor being involved? And that's just kind of how I ended up here. I learned about the endocannabinoid system. I learned about cannabis being medicine. I learned about just overall homeostasis and started exploring with mindfulness and started
Mhm.
learning about like vibration and like just all these things just kind of came up over the years, and that's how I ended up here.
Oh, goodness. So, with that being said, did you keep that therapist? Excuse me.
Girl, no. Mm-mm.
But I'm so glad that you found this,
Yeah.
that you all of these things led to where you are now. So what made you want to give your information to the community?
It was necessary. I was kind of irritated. Like how do we have a whole system in our body and we're not taught about it? Like it just didn't make sense to me. Like at that point I was about 10 years into nursing. It's this whole
Mhm.
system that is supposed to support regulation and homeostasis. Food supports it. Herbs support it. It's the driver for all other systems in our body. So how is it that I've been a nurse for so long and I don't know? And I was like, well, I just need to tell
Mhm.
other people too.
So how did you end up becoming a cannabis nurse?
That
I've
was
heard of the role before
mm.
because my fiance was a manager of one of the first flagship cannabis stores in Florida.
Oh, okay.
So I know what a cannabis nurse is. I just have never before that, before he told me they had cannabis nurses, I had never heard of the role before.
Yeah. Well, it's very new. So it was just acknowledged by the ANA
Okay.
last year in October as a specialty. So everything that I've done before that has been more off of I'm gonna do this thing. Okay. Does it make any sense? I don't know, but it makes sense to me. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably just after the pandemic when I started like connecting with other nurses who are doing similar work, that I started to feel validated in the fact that cannabis nursing is really a thing. But I was just kind of moving off of my own presumption that people just
Mhm.
needed to know this information and hey, we're going to call it a cannabis nurse.
Okay. You just made the word up yourself.
Right?
This is what we're gonna call it, and I think that it's gonna work. And look now, it's a specialty.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there were other people who probably thought it way before me and all those kind of
Mhm.
things, but like because I was in my own bubble, it felt like it was a novel idea to me.
What do your typical patients look like?
Generally, people who chronic illness, dealing with chronic illness, have are tired of the medical system. They're
Mhm.
tired of taking all the pharmaceuticals without getting and without their quality of life being impacted. They tend to have a lot of pain and deal with insomnia, and generally anxiety are the most common features that come up.
Mhm.
Diagnosis not diagnoses wise, it ranges, like there's no common diagnosis for me. But I've dealt with people with Guillain-Barré. I've dealt with people with just general insomnia, so high functioning but insomnia. I've dealt with people who have HIV. I've dealt with people who have diabetic neuropathy. Like it just ranges because cannabis isn't diagnosis specific, it's more symptom management.
Mhm.
And just about anybody can benefit from cannabis being their medicine.
Okay. See, I have like known for a long time the benefits of cannabis, but I've also known for a long time more cons than benefits. So it's great to hear all the beneficial reasons as to why people should utilize cannabis as their medicine.
Mhm.
So, when did you decide to make this a business for yourself?
I had already been dibbling and dabbling in entrepreneurship before I started this. So,
Mhm.
we actually owned 3 houses at some point, my husband and I. I actually had a prior business that did terrible, but it was still fun
But it
nonetheless.
was a
It
business.
was a business, it happened. Um,
Give
it
yourself
was
a pat on the back for that.
yes, right? But that was called the Yogi Journey, and
Mhm.
really following my yoga experience and how I began to adopt that as part of my life. So that was in the early, probably 2017, 18, so early
Mhm.
online era. So what I wanted to do was to I was on Pinterest at the time. I was really good at it too. Like just helping people realize that yoga is a journey, is not a race. It's a
Mhm.
thing that you do to support mindfulness. You're not going to be perfect at it. Not everybody looks good doing it. Just go out here and do it. And that the reason why I believe that it didn't do well as it could have is because I didn't have a solid foundational like pain point. I didn't have a solid
Mhm.
foundational like product. I was yeah, so all those things were lacking at the time. But so when this came along, it just only made sense to make it into a business. One, because there weren't and still aren't many jobs doing this. And so in order to get the message out, you have to be innovative. And
Mhm.
that just felt really good to me. Two, I was so burnt out from the working world. I was so over it. The whole thing, the whole experience of working for people just was not cutting it for me. Everywhere I went, some boss was mad at me because I questioned something too much.
Yeah.
You know, I had too many good ideas. I wasn't happy with something, and instead of like working with me to find solutions, it created tension all the time. And so I just was like, you know what, the job is here and it makes me money, but I'd rather do
Mhm.
this over here.
Anytime you're a problem solver, they don't like that because most of the time they want people who are okay with not following the rules, that are okay with not following evidence-based practice. They it is so odd how we're supposed to follow all these step-by-step rules and we have policies and procedures and nobody follows them, but they get mad when you question them about it.
Mhm. And the cool thing about cannabis nursing is that it's so new that there are no policies, there are no procedures. Like I get to be part of what that looks like for
Mhm.
people. Like I get to create the experience for my patients, the patients that I choose to work with, and it's not based off of anything that anybody else created. So I didn't have to stay in a box. I mean, cannabis by itself is very taboo,
Mhm.
and so, at the end of the day, I am just breaking the rules all the way around, and that's how I felt. And And I was okay with it, and I was okay with the idea stigma, because that's just what I did anyway when I was working. It's like, oh no, these patients need extra help. No, no,
Mhm.
like these rules just don't work. And yeah, so that's it. Only makes sense to me.
You came out of corporate swinging. You was like, "I'm not going back. I don't care what these people say."
Yep.
But I love that because so many of us don't know how to step outside of the box. I have so many friends who are stuck in toxic work relationships.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like they know this job is bad for them,
Yeah,
but they stay
because the
because
money's good.
the money's good and they also get to do kind of what they want to do, but it's still not a great job because they don't have great relationships with their bosses. And so it's so toxic because it's so up and down.
Mhm.
But like I tell people, whenever you feel like you're dragging to go to work, you got to roll out of bed, hit the floor before you can get up. When you have to do all of that stuff, it's time to go.
Mhm. 'Cause
And
we
you
have
just
to,
have to move your feet.
yes, also talk about quality of life.
Mhm.
Like, are you enjoying the life that you're living? Are you doing it on purpose? Are you doing it intentionally? How did you end up being a nurse? So, in my case, it did make sense for me to become a nurse, and I don't regret any moment, but it really wasn't my choice.
It chose you.
It chose me. So,
Mhm.
why am I here? And do I continue to choose you? Right? Because you
Ooh,
don't have to.
and you don't. Y'all can leave at any given time.
Hmm.
Keep
Hmm.
keep your license available though, just in case.
Just in case, because that's the one thing a nursing license will give you is security.
And variety.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about the profession. As traumatic as it was going through nursing school, it gives us variety because we can do a lot of things with our nursing degree. And I think that's a common theme in all my episodes is that we know that we can do so many things. Like look at you, you're a cannabis
I
nurse.
know.
You're a cannabis nurse. Like, did you I don't even think that when you became a nurse that you thought that you would end up being a cannabis nurse.
I can't even imagine my life today 15 years ago. Like this is not on a trajectory. At this, like, I'm a cannabis nurse. I'm also a Reiki practitioner. I have a
Oh
community of
wow.
nurses. I also am working on learning psychometry, which is a form of psychic mediumship. Like, I could never imagine that I would have the skill set that I have today. Like, never.
And I really love that for you. So whenever you decided that you were not going to take the meds, that you were going to find yoga and find plant medicine and figure it out on your own, how do you feel like that increase your mental wellness? Oh, excuse me.
Okay, so it because when you're moving through from job, so I was hyper focused. I was hyper
Mhm.
focused and boxed in. So I had an internal marker that says that you're successful if you make X amount of dollars per hour, and that was given to me by my parents.
Mhm.
And it took me a while to even realize that. Like, in the moment, I didn't know that, but I know that now, 5 years out of it, right? And so that was the only indicator for success as far as I was concerned, until I hit that roadblock where I was like, wait, Ash, are you pooping? Wait, Ash, do you eat? Wait, Ash. Like, it was all of these things that just kind of kept popping up. It's like, well, of course you're batshit crazy right now because you're not nourishing yourself. You're not sleeping. You've gone
Mm.
through all these terrible experiences. You also got 2 kids that you got to worry about and a husband, and you have not paid yourself not a lick of attention. The only thing that your mind was focused on is X amount of dollars at this particular job. And
You know
so,
what?
what?
You know what? You never recognize that, like, I have always thought about the fact of like chasing a bag is a toxic mentality.
Mhm.
But how did you pinpointed that so perfectly? Like, whenever you look back over your life and you can't remember the last time that you actually took care of yourself and you're taking care of a slew of people? How did that affect your relationships with other people?
It was tough. I mean, and I still have conversations with especially my oldest about it because I was not tapped in. I was
Mhm.
not completely present. I was, and of course that has effect on your children. Of course that has effect on your loved ones, relationships, friendships, all of those things. That's what gets sacrificed in the process of being hyper focused. And going back to the conversation about holistic healing, that is the whole person. The whole person
Mhm.
includes their relationships. It includes their relationship with food. It includes their relationship with their environment. It includes their relationship with their self, right? And if you're not bringing awareness to that, because who else is going to bring awareness to it but you?
Yeah.
If you're not bringing awareness to it, then you can't do anything to address it. And so if we're working 90 hours a week or whatever, I don't suspect too many people out here have enough time to have a solid, sleep ritual,
Mhm.
to have a solid, morning ritual, to have a good exercise routine. Because
'Cause
how?
woo. I know what you're talking about because I think I'm in that space right now.
Hmm.
Because I haven't hit the I'm ready to go yet. Because
Hmm.
I'm still in all of these different places trying to figure out what I truly want.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I have a new baby and I want to spend more time with him. So I think that now hearing you say it really affected your relationships within your family, that is more important. Of course, you can't live off of love,
Right.
but you have found something that you love to live off of.
And here's the thing, abundance mindset is not just about money.
Mhm.
It's about abundance of nourishment, abundance of life experiences, abundance of love, abundance of like all areas. And when you work towards having that abundance mindset in all areas, money comes
Mhm.
every single time.
Oh, look. I really do appreciate you for saying what you just said because I needed that.
Okay.
I I needed that. Okay. But I really want to know what are your next steps?
Next steps for me. So, in current state, this year has been kind of all over the place because I've been following an intuitive nudge that is
Mhm.
moving me adjacent to cannabis nursing, but not in the way that I had previously done it. So, in previous years, I've identified as just a cannabis nurse. That is what I am. That's what I do. That's how I serve.
Mhm.
Um, and in more And so what that meant was when I worked with clients, it was primarily and solely to focus on the cannabis aspect of it. But in more recent months, I've kind of shifted more into the holistic life
Mhm.
area. So I still do support cannabis nurses. So people who are interested in cannabis nursing, I do support them with personal brand development, getting outside of their comfort zone, getting away from the bedside, becoming an entrepreneur. I still do that within my community. It's called the
Mhm.
Highline Tribe. I also have a training course that's on demand if you want to learn more about cannabis medicine. But in addition to that, I also do holistic life coaching. It infuses understanding of human design. It also infuses intuitive knowledge as well as like a lot of things that I've learned about cannabis, which is around balance. What does balance really look like in our lives? So even the conversation about the love doesn't pay the bills, right? But how do we find more love, more money, and create
Mhm.
balance in that dynamic on that spectrum? So I help people find routine, rituals, things to help enhance the experience of life. But in addition to that, I've also been asked to be a community nurse at a university that infuses all of what
Mm.
I just told you and brings that to a student population.
I love that because you didn't. Look, you are, and this is the Evolved Nurse podcast. So, the way that you are evolving through your journey and your ability to serve is amazing to me because now we always talk about the just a nurse title. And you thought that you were just a cannabis nurse,
Mhm.
but now you have found that there are so many different avenues that you can go to that you can incorporate cannabis, but you can also help in a holistic approach. And it feeds you and the people that you're serving so much more.
Yeah. It's surreal when you really take a second to, I mean, even as I'm talking with you about it, it's very surreal. It's very like, did this really happen? Like, is this really your
It
life?
happened.
Um, yeah, so yeah, that's been the journey. And actually in the more like recent 2 to 3 years, it's been a significant spiritual evolution as well because I think in the beginning it was a physiological process to bring my body back to wellness, and
Mhm.
then an emotional and a mental regulation to help support like who am I, what am I doing here, but then it's become a spiritual evolution, and in an attempt to find balance in even those four areas of our human experience of our bodies that has served me significantly and has just changed the way that I even view the world. So to be able to say like here I sit and I'm doing this and I'm having this conversation with you and I've helped X amount of people. Like one of the nurses that used to be part of my community is no longer, recently got to speak at CanMed in Florida, and it's a huge event. It's a
Mhm.
huge event. And she felt gratitude towards me because of what I've given her, and she felt prepared to do something, speak in front of hundreds of people at one time to talk about cannabis medicine. Having those experiences just are just so moving, and I just have a ton of appreciation and gratitude for every ounce of um, participation I've had in anybody's journey.
Mhm. Well, you have participated in mine now.
Oh,
I really do appreciate this conversation because, like I said, holistic medicine has been something that I have been looking forward to for a very long time. So to hear you talk about the journey that you went through from nursing school to med surge to telemetry, float pool, and then on into corporate where all they think about is money.
girl.
And then that sparked your drive and your motivation to want to be mentally well and physically well, and that has led you to where you are now.
Mhm, mhm.
I love your story.
Oh, thank you.
But because we are ending this episode, where can people find you?
I'm all over the internet. Like literally you can Google my name and you'll find me. But for a more specific answer, you can find me on Instagram at Cannabis Nursing Solutions. Or you can even find me on LinkedIn and you can just type my name in and I come right up. I have a ton of articles there. I have plenty of previous podcasts if you want to learn more about cannabis medicine. I'm
Mhm,
very responsive via Instagram more so than LinkedIn. So feel free to inbox me, send me a message, tell me you like it, tell me you hate it. I don't care. I would love the feedback.
mhm. What are some books that you're reading right now?
The last book I read, I'll answer your question. The last book I read was Worthy by Jada Pinkett, and I loved it.
Mhm. You know what? I probably will download that book
It was really
because I've
good.
heard that it's really good.
It is, and the way that it was written was definitely for self-development purposes, and she talks a
Mhm,
lot about her experience with, psychedelics, plant medicine, plant healing as well. But there's a lot that a lot of women can resonate with as far as, like, being a wife and being a mother and, just some of the struggles that come along with just life kinda taking you on a ride, and you wake up and you're like, "How did I end up here?"
Look, and it will.
Okay.
And if you don't get control of it, or, you can go with the flow. But sometimes you end up in places that you never thought that you would be.
Yeah. And you don't like it there, and you're
Mhm.
trying to figure out how you got there, and, while you're trying to uncover how you got there, you have to unpack all of the trauma you experienced in the process, and then that's where the hard part comes. So, she talks a lot about, like, how she was able to do that, and I appreciated the fact that she shared that aspect of her story.
Okay. And before we end, what is one piece of advice that you can give to new nurses?
That's so funny. I just was in a pinning ceremony yesterday, and it was, don't forget why you became a nurse, because most likely that's gonna take you on the journey that you need to be on.
Okay. Well, if you have made it to the end of this episode, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Miss Ashley, for coming on to this podcast. I truly appreciate you because you didn't have to come on here, but you did.
Thank you.
And so I would like to say thank you to everybody. If you have been on my Instagram, you saw that we did a giveaway, and the winner of that giveaway was Annalise on Facebook. If you have any questions, make sure that you email us at theevolvednurse@gmail.com and follow us at the Evolved Nurse on Instagram. And you can also join our Facebook community, Evolving Nurse. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you